It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. And now Aaron won't even be able to get his revenge. We discuss where we go from here, a place absent for the last 8 years in Packer Nation, as we talk about what happens next on your Packers Fan Podcast.
Hey Packers fans, this is your unofficial Packers Fan Podcast, and these are the podcasters you're looking for. One of these guys has been to the birthplace of Curly Lambeau, and the other guy, well, he has too. And now it's time to go, Pack, go, with your hosts, Wayne Henderson and Troy Heinritz.
Thanks for joining us on your Packers Fan Podcast. This is the show by and for fans of the 13-time NFL champion Green Bay Packers, and we still want to hear from you. There's still more football to talk about. Give us a call at +1 920-3PACK-GO or go to packersfanpodcast.com/feedback. Let your voice be heard. We have made it, Troy. This is episode 150 of your Packers Fan Podcast, recorded December 19th, 2017. And of course, the show notes will be at packersfanpodcast.com/150. That's a lot of Packers talk, 150.
There's a lot of Packers talk. Fortunately, it'll be not as many more Packers talks coming up because unfortunately we've been officially eliminated from playoff contention. So no January podcasts for us. So sad. But this week first, right? They always say, you always worry about your next game only. So on this week, we'll be talking about the roller coaster of a game we saw in Carolina, up 14-10 at the half, and then just fell apart. The IR roster spot juggle is always fun to talk about. And then, of course, there's this fun story because what else do we have to talk about anymore for the rest of the season? So why not? The Chicago Packers? Could it have been possible?
What? Wow. We're also going to update you on injuries again. We'll have highlights from the official Packers dope sheet for Vikes at Packers, the grudge match. Troy has keys to evaluating the talent, and we've got great G-Force feedback from you. And me, I'm at Wayne Henderson, the voice acting, podcasting part owner of your 13-time NFL champion Green Bay Packers. And I think it's hilarious that we are being trolled by fans of a team, a purple team, that have never won a Super Bowl and never will, all while we, the Packer fans, have 13 NFL titles, more than any other team.
And I tell you today, that was probably the best part of the day. It's like, really? You guys are just going to keep talking? Just keep talking. Because when you lose in the NFC Championship game to the Rams, it'll be funny because you'll be one step away from being the first team in NFL history to play in your, sorry.
And even if they do make it to the Super Bowl, they'll be the first home team to lose a Super Bowl. Oh, snap.
That is true. That is true. I'm wondering how I can get my butt cheek to be more like the size of my foot. I am at Troy Heinritz, your gold ticket package holding part owner of your 13-time NFL champion Green Bay Packers. The Packers Fan Podcast is available on demand and on the go with the free Packers Fan Podcast apps. They're still available for iOS and for Android, regardless if we have playoffs or not.
We are there for you. And exciting news, your Packers Fan Podcast is now available in Spotify, the iOS or Android Spotify app. Please tell any friends that you know that listen to music in Spotify that they can now also hear the Packers Fan Podcast in Spotify. Can I get a go, Pack, go?
Go, Pack, go!
And of course, you can just go to packersfanpodcast.com/Spotify or just go to packersfanpodcast.com and look for the little Spotify logo. We're very happy to be available in there as well.
Well, this was an interesting one. Aaron Rodgers comes back off the IR to save the season. Is it possible? Could they make the playoffs? We need Atlanta to lose 2. We need Seattle to lose 2. We need Carolina to lose 2. And we have to win 3 games against the teams that are in the playoff hunt. And things were looking great for the first half. I was pretty impressed with Davante Adams' touchdown. Had a really good one there by Cobb. Cobb made some nice moves on the touchdown going to the end zone.
Yes.
But that's where this game kind of ends, is at the end of the first half.
Pretty much. I mean, Davante Adams, I think we'll never know, but I think we still would have won that game if Davante Adams had not been demolished on the field again.
Twice in one season. At least this time there was some, heavy damage doled out for this situation, because that was just completely unnecessary and uncalled for. And I think if anybody does anything in the offseason, whether we're talking about the catch rule and the tuck rule and the butt cheek rule and whatever else is going on at the owners' meetings this offseason, they need to talk about this stupid, flagrant, dumb decision making. I mean, it should be automatic ejection, automatic suspension for a game, automatic paycheck gone. Like, there is just no need for this garbage in the NFL.
Yeah, and I just am amazed that Davante Adams made it through. Obviously, he's probably banged up, has a concussion and what have you, but the fact that he lived through two of those, that is kind of a testament, because he's quite a beast, because many of us would have been killed the first time earlier in the season when he got demolished if we were out there.
This game was interesting for me, because if you go back and you think about how we've gotten to where we are, why we were put in this position in the first place to have to win these last 3 games plus get some help, is because if you go back to New Orleans, right, we're winning going into the fourth quarter. If you go back to Baltimore, we're winning going into the fourth quarter. For some reason, the defense in the second half of these games has just fallen apart. And I don't know if that's because they're on the field too long, or the scheme changes at halftime and we're not able to scheme change along with them. Is it a coaching issue? But there's something that's just happened this season where the second half, the defense has been just, lack of a better term, piss poor, because even fundamentally wise, the defensive penalties in this game were ridiculous, especially in the second half. And you could say what you want. Oh, Rodgers threw 3 interceptions. He's a little bit rusty. If Geronimo Allison doesn't fumble the football in that last-ditch effort drive, we score on that drive. I mean, Rodgers was pretty much having his way with the Panthers defense. So I have no doubt we would have tied the game had that fumble not happened. And stuff like that just happens. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. You punch out's a punch out. It's a good defensive play. Kudos to them for making it happen. But our defense, another, almost 400-yard performance. So you can't win football games in that situation.
No, it was just so frustrating, pulling my hair out when, the game is so close. It'd be different if we were up by 21 points and some of these defensive penalties that were just bonehead penalties happened. But with a game that close, there's no room for that. I mean, I couldn't believe that we actually recovered that onside kick. I thought, oh, things are looking good. And then just everything else, like you said, that fumble. And then, of course, the defense, they just can't make it past a half of a game.
I know. I think, if nothing else, missing the playoffs for the first time in 8 years, the first time ever since we've done this podcast, quite frankly, it's going to be, it's an interesting time up in Green Bay. Now, people are going to be like, well, Ted Thompson should go, and Mike McCarthy should go, and Dom Capers should go. Look, there are not many coaches in the NFL and not many organizations. I mean, look at Cincinnati. Look at Cleveland. We could be any of those organizations. Look at the Bears. These are not bad people. Now, maybe the 3 of them together isn't the recipe for success. And some people say, yeah, you might have squandered Aaron Rodgers in his prime, in these last 8 seasons. But at the same time, I mean, there were 2 NFC championship games and we had a 15-1 season. And that doesn't happen because you have bad people running the organization. I still think Mike is a good coach. I still think Ted does exactly what he needs to do. I think the problem is now glaringly in front of us that you can't expect Aaron Rodgers, let alone a Brett Hundley, to come back from 400 yards of offense given up to opponents. I mean, this is the time where if Dom Capers does not let go from the organization this season, I think Packers fans are going to defect to south of the border, to be quite honest, because something has to change on the defensive side of the ball. And people are going to be like, oh, the injuries. We were injured it doesn't matter what the cornerback situation was. There was 0 pass rush last year. There was 0 pass rush this year. And that's where I think we need to focus come the draft.
Totally agree. With each passing season over the past 3 or 4 years, that there's always been people calling for at least Dom Capers to get fired. And we've given him a pass and we've gone on and injuries and like you said. But after this past season, It's just what he's been doing might have worked 20 years ago, but now everybody is on to whatever we're doing on defense because it's the same old. And you mix in injuries with the same old and aging players. It's just not going to work. And hopefully they can find a way where maybe Dom Capers could be convinced into retiring so that he can save face and not get fired. But either way, he does not need to be with the Green Bay Packers next year. It's sad to say, but it is time for a change.
And for all the people that want Ted Thompson's head, and they're like, oh, Ted's not Rick Wolf, Ted's not this, Ted's not that. Let me remind you that Ted Thompson worked for Rick Wolf. So everything he knows, he learned from Rick Wolf. So he is just fine. And yeah, maybe he hasn't done such a great job in free agency, and that's because he doesn't want to do free agency. It's all of us fans that are like, why won't you go get this guy? Why won't you go get that guy? So what do? We went ahead and we got that guy, and then that guy decided to, poo-poo on the team and go to another team and then still end up on IR. So, no,
disaster.
I mean, you draft and you build from the draft. That is the Packers way, and it has worked successfully to get us into the playoffs 8 seasons in a row. And, literally McCarthy has not had, I think this will be, by the time we finish these 2 games, right, between Minnesota and Detroit, he will have 4 games in his entire coaching career that meant nothing. So, I mean, that is a testament to the quality of coaching and staff that Mike McCarthy is able to put together. So, I mean, I don't want to sound like we're like, loving on the organization or whatever, but at the same time, it's not an offensive problem. I mean, we can move the football. Brent Hundley even moved the football against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are a very good playoff contending team. They almost took out the Patriots. So at the end of the day, you have to look at it. What's the real problem? The real problem is that we need to hold defenses to 200 yards or less and 10 points. We need to have a defense like we had in 2010 and 2011 in order to make the things happen that we need to happen in order to get back to the promised land.
Yeah, and although I agree that Mike McCarthy should definitely come back, there is that sticky situation because I think it's because he's stubborn. They play calling. We finally get a running game, and then as soon as Aaron Rodgers comes back, we stop running the ball. And even early in the season, we just give up on the run way too early. I do not know what's going on with the play calling. Is there a way that we could keep Mike McCarthy, but have someone else that's a little more aggressive and more run-focused take over the play calling?
But at the same time, you got to remember the Carolina Panthers have a pretty good run defense. So, yeah, we might have given it up on a little early, and we didn't give up on it. I didn't think we gave up on it too early because we were still up 14-10 at the start of the half. At the start of the second half. When you get behind and you're down 31-17, you have to throw the ball. You only have 10 minutes left in the game. So you're going to give up on the run game in the fourth quarter. But the run game wasn't producing this week because the defense is a good defense. And unfortunately, again, a short yard passing situation, 5 yards here, 5 yards there, which is what we went to towards the end of the game, is exactly what you needed to do to have a pseudo running game through the air in order to make things happen. So, I mean, I don't fault anybody other than the defense again, because we were put in a position where we had the lead and they gave it away in the second half. And the offensive line, coming down the wire too, the offensive line looked abysmal. I mean, it was like sack against Rodgers on the drive before the touchdown and the onside kick when we really needed the score. And it's just like, whoa, what happened to the offensive line? It was scary. I thought he was really going to get hurt.
Thank goodness that Julius Peppers was at least a gentle giant and wasn't one of the ones that was really trying to lay Aaron Rodgers out into the ground.
Yeah, you can just touch him and he'll fall down. You don't have to lay all 290 plus pounds on him like some people from a purple team up north.
I still hold the Minnesota Vikings responsible, especially that one player on defense, for the second half of our season going down the tubes. And I wish nothing but revenge on the Vikings losing every game from here on out.
Now, people are going to complain about the refs, about the butt cheek call.
That was insane. He's like half out of bounds and half in the end zone. And I don't care about whether he has one butt cheek, two butt cheeks, a tiny butt cheek. What a disaster.
But if there is a camera angle, there is a camera shot that clearly shows that he does have both butt cheeks on the black.
I didn't see
so
it.
Yeah, it came through on actually on our Twitter account. You can go to PFP and look at some of the comments at Packers Fan Pod on Twitter. There is one picture. If we can find it, maybe we'll put it in the show notes. But there is one picture where you can clearly see that there is black between his butt cheek and the white of the end zone end line. So unfortunately, I think that was the right call. It is a touchdown, sadly.
Well, let's go ahead and dig into some listener feedback because you've all got some great thoughts as well. And at first, I'm kind of thinking of the phrase from the first Star Wars movie when the Falcons beat the Bucks. It's as if millions of Packers fans, their voices yelled out in pain and then were suddenly silenced. No voicemails this week on the Packers Fan Podcast. So I am hoping that your voice will recover after we beat the Purple Ones on Saturday, especially since listener Caleb Fisher is having a birthday on Vikings-Packers game day, hoping evidently it's not going to be AR-12, hoping Brent Hundley and the Packers deliver a huge victory Saturday night.
I like the nice tie-in to the new Star Wars movie, going back to the Force Awakens movie. That's pretty good there. Kudos to you, sir.
Thank you. I love Star Wars and the Force, the Last Jedi. Fantastic. Oh my goodness. See that movie again and again.
Yeah, because you won't have anything else to do in January, apparently.
Oh,
too soon?
Oh.
I'm so sorry.
That hurts. So with that being said, without the voicemails, we have a lot of other feedback. Troy, why don't you check into the email bag?
Sure, why not? Reaching in, pulling out a letter from Steven again in Palos Park, Illinois, home of enemy territory. And based off Wayne Henderson's recommendation, I did check out the dope sheet for the Packers and Panthers game. Did you think that maybe next year the Packers and Panthers should take a break from playing each other, as mentioned in the show notes? Because this is the third time in the last 4 seasons that they've played each other. I think that'll happen because they'll probably be in second or maybe even first place of the NFC South, and we'll either be in second or third place. So we might be able to escape the NFC South for a little bit, which would be great. But that means we might have to play the Buccaneers or the Saints again, depending on where we finish up. Steven continues, I have said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Dom Capers should get fired as a defensive coordinator. If they do miss the playoffs, and they will because we've been eliminated, it will be the first time in almost a decade since the Packers missed the playoffs. And if you are the Green Bay Packers, who do you move on from here? Or where do you move on from here, I think is what he meant. So that's Steven in Palos Park. And yeah, I think there has to be a change. One change has to happen because if you do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, that's the definition of
insanity. Yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks a lot, Buccaneers. You had a chance to tie up or even win that game, and thanks for blowing that for both of us.
Hey, you know what? It's just like the 80s all over again. The Buccaneers and the Packers are only good for a half.
And something that's actually more reminiscent of maybe 10, 15 years ago is the age-old question, Brett or Aaron? Who's it going to be, Brett or Aaron? It's come back around again. And
full circle.
It always does. That's how it's like fashion. Things just keep coming and going out of fashion. So
the sad part is that purple was the color of the year, according to all the fashion magazines.
I don't see it. Well, guess what? The Super Bowl's in a different year than this year. So take that, purple people.
That's right.
So speaking of the things that come and go, and Brett and Aaron, it's coming back around again. We had our weekly Monday Twitter poll and also in our community Facebook group for the Packers Fan Podcast. And this is before we heard the news that Aaron Rodgers is back on IR. Basically, we wanted to know, if you had the choice, who do you think the Packers should play at quarterback this coming Saturday night? And even with Aaron Rodgers not on IR, believe it or not, 66% of you voted that Brett Hundley should be the one playing at quarterback Saturday night. And only 34% picked Aaron Rodgers. So instead of Brett Favre, it's Brett Hundley. Brett wins again.
And because that's kind of like a civics lesson there, because 2/3 of the vote overturned the veto in the Senate. That's why Brett Hundley is now there and Aaron Rodgers is on IR because of our poll.
And now we have to redo a whole one because maybe Joe Callahan needs to be put in the mix.
Well, we'll get to that. Hold on.
Okay. I'm giddy. I'm anxious. I'm nervous. I can't wait for Saturday night. But we did have some replies to the poll in Facebook and on Twitter. On Twitter, Pat Mason said, save our precious cargo for next season. Speaking of AR-12.
Definitely. And Daniel Chewy said, as Packer fans, this is not our year. So why risk Aaron getting hurt again? Hashtag go back go.
Great points. And in our Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community group, Caleb Fisher is going to be the birthday boy this Saturday night. No matter what the outcome is, I'm never going to stop loving my Packers.
Very true. Very true. It's not like I've decorated my wall in Patriots colors or anything in my office.
Stop.
Brett Connor over in the UK. How's he doing in the MasterChef? We haven't gotten a Brett Connor update.
He gave it a great effort. But
did he got out on the final three, or did he get out in the finals?
It was very confusing to me how the MasterChef Celebrity Edition actually operated. But
okay.
I was just sad to see you go, Brett. You represented well. And I can't wait to have some of your food someday in England.
See, he just needed to serve more bratwurst and sauerkraut, more Packers flair, and he would have won.
Yeah, I'm sure the critics in England, that's right up their alley.
Well, Brett said, let's play Hundley. Get him some good game time if he is our future. Regroup in the offseason, and let's go again. Go Pack, go. We ran the ball because Hundley had trouble throwing it. We ran the ball well. AR-12 is back, and who can throw the ball well, so we stopped the run game. It's just bad play calling from the coaching staff. The defense has been missing since Seattle. Don't think we will see them again until next season.
Ooh. That's a great point, Brett, but I am hoping against hope that we at least see the defense this Saturday night against the Vikings.
Well, I do believe that the title of that episode back in the first game of the season was Be Like Mike, because the defense was like awesome and we had a pass rush and we like totally dismantled the Seahawks. Not like that's very hard to do, apparently, if you talk to the LA Rams and one Mr. Gurley and Mr. Goff, because they just, that was a beatdown.
Yeah, that was a beatdown. And yet I still have Vikings fans trolling us saying that they are not afraid of the Rams at all.
They should be, because they have a third string quarterback playing as their quarterback. It's not, at least that's what I heard. They're just bragging. It's just crazy up there. I don't know what they're thinking.
We also heard from Granny Cheese. If Aaron is up to it, let him play. And evidently that's been answered. Put Hundley in. Like somebody else already said, it's our Packers, so it doesn't really matter at this point. We love them no matter what the season brings. Maybe they need to miss the playoffs this year, and I think it might give them time to heal, rest, strengthen up, and come back super strong for 2018. We don't really know how many of them are going to be playing through injuries and pain, but as always, go Pack, go. Much love from the Texas-only Green Bay Packers fanatics.
I'm okay with the healing and the strengthening up and being ready for next year, but this was the cheapest Super Bowl for us to go to because it's in our backyard. Now we got to deal with airfare and hotels, and it's okay.
I haven't even looked ahead to where it is next year, but...
all right. Christopher said, even though it's pointless, I want the best option that can defeat our rivals in the North these last two games. Go down fighting when bragging rights are on the line, especially on prime time. Got to cheer for the green and gold during the good times and the bad. You also have to admit we've been pretty spoiled as fans since all the way back in 1992.
Christopher, that is very true. We have been spoiled, and rightfully so, I must say. And that's an excellent point about the bragging rights on the line, because these last two games, some people said, they don't even matter. I'm not even going to watch. Somebody even suggested maybe the Packers shouldn't even try to win. I'm like, are you crazy? The Packers will always try to win, and especially when it's against division rivals 2 weeks in a row, where we can kind of maybe mess them up mentally a little bit before one or both of them try to go to the playoffs.
Look, the last time we finished in third place was Aaron Rodgers' first season at the helm. So let's not try and do that this year. Let's at least come in the number 2 spot. I know we can finish ahead of Detroit.
Yeah, especially since that last game is against Detroit, and they haven't looked all that fantastic. But this week, I'm just so focused on this game, whether or not it quote-unquote means anything. The fact that we can get football revenge against the Vikings It's the last home game at Lambeau Field. It's going to be cold. The fans are going to be raucous. I mean, they are just going to go berserk and want the Vikings to go down. And I think the fans are going to play a little bit of a part in how the Packers perform Saturday night.
Absolutely, because it's going to be cold and snowy up there. Peter Allison also checked in and said, well, our season's done for, and I am for one hoping we make some serious changes in Green Bay between now and next year. I'd like to see Ted, Mike, and Dom leave because something has to change to get Rodgers more rings that he deserves. Ted has had his haters, but I think he's done well to fit us with players capable of competing every year despite the numerous injuries. His failings came with us using something other than the draft to add veteran depth. Dom is well spoken about, but for Mike, this year has opened my eyes with him. Don't get me wrong, he's done some great stuff, but his decision-making at times has been awful. I'm sure you can recount many a close game we have lost where Mike has been at fault, and this year is no different. Let's take the games we had Hundley in for the O was stagnant until Brett was let loose. The games we lost were all very winnable, but Mike avoided playing to Brett's strengths, not forgetting the 57-yard field goal. Those games with Hundley showed both what Mike is capable of and what he's not. Then we get Rodgers back, and I remember back to past seasons where I would be begging Mike to let Rodgers throw the ball more instead of insisting on trying to get a pretty non-existent run game going, and thinking to myself that at least we have a decent run game to go with. But what does he do? He lets the man who has just come back from a serious shoulder injury to the throwing arm throw 45 times during the game. He put Jones in the game, who had an amazing drive, and then rested him for ages. Something needs to change, and maybe cleaning house a bit will help all over, because every year it's the same problems that have prevented us from dominating this league like the Patriots. We have such a capable team with a god at quarterback. It's time we get it all sorted out. Go Pack, go! Lots of thoughts there, Wayne. Lots of thoughts.
Yeah, Peter, thank you so very much for your post in the Packers Fan Podcast Community Facebook group at packerscommunity.com. Great points. Peter wants to see everybody go.
Yeah, I don't think that's the right call. I definitely think we need to figure out the pass rush. I think we go back to 4-3. Heck, maybe even 5-2 just to do something different. And I think it starts with Dom. I really do. It's time to move on.
Yeah. I think at the bare minimum, that will help turn around quite a few things if we pick the right guy or woman, whoever's available. And as far as defensive players and free agents that might even be available, even if we wanted to go that route, I can't think of really awesome defensive players that we could buy at some insane price that would be able to help us out all that much. We back to what Ted does best, and here's hoping there's some good players coming up in the draft.
Absolutely.
I guess we'll know in a few months, but until then, we can at least try to spoil some things for our NFC North foes. Let's check in with our MVPs supporting the Packers Fan Podcast on Patreon. We have superfan Aaron Peterson. He's keeping the streak alive and pledging Patreon support for your Packers Fan Podcast at the Brett Favre $4 level. Thank you so much, AP.
And huge Texas-sized thank you to the Texas-only Green Bay Packers fanatics. Your fantastic support at the $4 Favre level keeps us going every single week.
So awesome. As is Diane Burnett. We really, really, really appreciate your Favre $4 Patreon support. You rock, and go Pack go.
And, of course, Brian, thank you, sir. You also are pledging at the $4 Brett Favre level, and that's continuing every single month, and we greatly appreciate it.
And Brett Favre letting his presence be felt. Jeff Summerfield, thank you for also being a great MVP of the Packers Fan Podcast at $4 a month. You help make the show better. Thank you.
Yeah, you too can help make the Packers Fan Podcast even better by becoming a Packers Fan Podcast MVP over on Patreon. That's Patreon/Packers Fan Podcast. Patreon.com/Packers Fan Podcast helps us grow the show to bring you more great content each and every week, maybe even more episodes during the off season, and you get some rewards too. So check out all the different levels by visiting Patreon.com/Packers Fan Podcast. You can even do your last minute holiday shopping over at PackersFanPodcast.com/Amazon, and we'll get a kickback for everything you spend over there.
And just recently, Amazon sent me a note. They changed their rules just a little bit, like they do. Basically, that link no longer goes directly to an Amazon link. They said that we have to have folks go to our site and then find the Amazon little logos and search boxes in our right-hand sidebar and go through that. So just that link, PackersFanPodcast.com/Amazon, will still take you to our support page. Find the Amazon link, and then it's the same as shopping regular Amazon, same prices. We just get a small kickback, and thanks in advance for all your Amazon shopping.
Love it. Good stuff. Well, thanks again to Diane, Brian, Aaron, the Texas-only Green Bay Packers fanatics, and Jeff for their awesome Patreon support of the show, because support is what we all need when we get talking about the injury report. Yes, Devontae Adams is down with the concussion. My guess is he will not be playing on Saturday because that's a short turnaround to come back from a hit like that. Vince Beagle had a groin injury. Ahmad Brooks, back injury. Quentin Dial with a chest issue. So, I mean, these like Ahmad Brooks and Quentin Dial were the add-ins, right, from free agency or off the waiver wire to fill in those gaps that we needed for the pass rush. And with them just banged up all year, that pass rush has been kind of non-existent. And then you get into the cornerback issues, right, with Demetri Goodson and Devon House. They were down. Clay Matthews came out with a hamstring issue coming out of this game. Jahari Evans on the line had a knee issue. And then Patrick Lucas also had an issue with his hand. So, I mean, just all around beat up, end of the season is what it is. You know, what are we going to do? It's tough sledding. It is what it could happen. And the good thing is that Kyle Rudolph on the Vikings side was a limited participant in practice today. So we'll have hopefully one less weapon when we face off on Saturday night. So we'll have to keep an eye on Kyle to see if he goes. Oof, I tell you, I'm hurt just thinking about all these guys hurt.
I know, it's just such a long, painful year. And then when we don't see that bright, shining light of the Lombardi Trophy reflecting in the sunlight in the distance, it just makes it hurt a little bit more. Get well, guys.
Get well for sure. And one person that needs to get well is AR-12, because for those that may have been living under a rock when the news broke earlier this afternoon on Tuesday, December 19th, Joe Callahan was re-signed back to the roster.
Again.
Which was pretty exciting because it's like the second or third time he's been back this season. And with this signing, what had to happen was somebody needed to move off of the roster to make a spot for him. So on to the injured reserve list goes one Aaron Rodgers, who will be done for the year as we have used both of our return options and because we don't have 8 weeks for him to come back off the IR before the season's over.
Exactly.
So season over for Aaron, unfortunately, and that brings up the question of Hundley or Callahan.
Well, Callahan is so rusty. He's got to be, because we haven't used him very much. I think we have to go back to Brett Hundley. But I hope that we put this game against the Vikings away middle or end of the third quarter and Joe Callahan can get some playing time, because we don't know if Brett Hundley's going to even be back next year. We don't know if Joe Callahan's going to be back next year.
Yeah, it's all very true, right? Because if Hundley has done enough to showcase his strength and fortitude and his comeback kid ability and all this other stuff, there is a possibility, because the contract is up, the Packers could trade him away to get a potential draft pick out of it. And if that's the case, Callahan becomes the de facto number 2 if they decide to keep him around. So in these next 2 games, I think the biggest thing you could do is, it's still a regular season. You still want to put up the victories. But I'm looking at these next 2 games personally as practice. Let Hundley play the first half, let Callahan play the second half, and just see what you got in these 2 guys and get them some real game time action, because I think that's the only way you're going to know what 2018 season is going to look like out of the gate.
It'll at least give us a quick peek, and hopefully things happen in a way, again, where we can be way up against the Vikings, just demolishing them, so that it won't matter as much which quarterback is out there, and we can just really get some film. And, I don't know what other teams are thinking around the NFL, if they're going to be interested that much in Brett Hundley or not. I mean, he certainly showed flashes of brilliance, especially running and escaping. So, like I said, it's audition time, it's practice, it's still beat the Vikings one way or another.
Well, someone else that actually did show some real prowess and some real thinking was a man by the name of Nathaniel Pope. Yes, Nathaniel Pope was a guy you might not have heard of, but Illinois is actually celebrating their bicentennial formation. And what we found out as part of the celebration is that Illinois might not have always been the same state that it is today. In fact, they were actually talking about cutting off the border of Illinois south of Lake Michigan at the tip, which would have literally put Chicagoland area into the state of Wisconsin. So could you imagine Wisconsin having two football teams, or could Green Bay have actually been the Chicago Packers? Nathaniel Pope did a shrewd move back in 1818 when the Illinois Territory's delegating Congress relocated the original proposed boundary from the southern tip of Lake Michigan up to its actual mark. And so this shift meant that Chicago, then an unincorporated backwater, became part of Illinois with a port on the Great Lakes. So Nathaniel Pope at least saved us from having the Green Bay Chicago Packers. That would have been really interesting.
Interesting is an understatement, Troy. And yeah, it's just funny how things work out, because if that change would have been made the other direction, who knows if the NFL really could have been formed the way that it was, because everything would have gone different. You know, the butterfly effect. Just thank goodness things happened the way they did.
Well, the other good news is that snow fell up in Lambeau Field in advance of this weekend's game on Saturday evening. The shovelers were out there making their $10 an hour, getting all the snow out of the bowl starting on Monday morning. So thanks to all of the people that came out and shoveled out the stadium. But the bigger thing is that with the snow, we finally got a little bit of a boost in Titletown, the Titletown District Park. The ice skating rink is actually open now, and they have a daily light show as well.
Oh, cool.
And we'll put a link up to the, there's a really good photographer slideshow that was done by, I believe it was the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. We'll get that put up there so that way we can showcase all of you what it looks like up there for those that can't get up to Lambeau Field. But the ice skating rink and the ice show are up and running. But even better yet, more fun stuff is happening because the Packers front office envisions the district along Lombardi Avenue as the destination for Packers fans and tourists. And that was certainly the case Thursday evening as hundreds of people packed the skating rink and checked out the new offerings, which also includes 46 Below, a bistro that serves quick bites, comfort food, and drinks for the park's visitors. The bistro's name is an homage to the Ice Bowl, the legendary 1967 NFL championship game at Lambeau Field, during which the wind chill temperature was 46 degrees below zero. The name
Fahrenheit.
also describes Fahrenheit. Yeah, not Celsius, Fahrenheit. Kelvin. No, just kidding.
Oh, wow.
The name also describes the space, which is on the ground floor, actually 46 feet below the top of the tubing hill, which is now open as well. Arian's company actually has purchased the naming rights for the sledding hill, which is opening in the next few weeks. They're partnering with Arian for they're well known in Wisconsin and around the world for their snowblowers and lawnmowers, and people will benefit from the use of the hill all year round. So hopefully by this weekend, when you get up there, you can do some ice skating on Friday night if you're staying there overnight, or hang out till Sunday and spend some time in Titletown and do some ice skating and sledding. A lot of good fun up there. It'll be great.
Yeah, it's very exciting that more and more of the Titletown district is starting to open up, because by the time I get back up to Lambeau Field, it's going to just be fabulous. I cannot wait, and it's such good news.
Well, I don't have any keys to the game, and that's because I don't really think it matters whether we win or lose this particular contest. What I would like to see, and I think we should focus on, like we've already kind of stated, is let's go ahead and just see some developmental players and maybe even some developmental plays, some developmental schemes. Let's just count this as preseason for the next 2 weeks, to be quite honest. I think we need to see some different defensive packages. I think we need to let some people just let their freak flag fly because it's going to be a free-for-all out there. I think we just need to do some different things and try some new stuff out. I'm really really interested to see things like Vince Beagle, like what he's able to do coming in off the pass rush, get him some more playing time out there, get some of these young cornerbacks tested, even if they can't keep up. At least we can see what we have. Maybe rotate in some of the second string offensive line, since we know Rodgers won't be out there. If Huntley gets hurt, it's only a game. He can recover in the offseason. But I think we really need to just showcase some of these younger players and really get a good look at what we need before we have to think about draft prospects for 2018.
So basically you're saying if we just kind of throw out the template we've been using all season, we conceivably could maybe get 6 interceptions and 10 sacks.
Potentially, yeah. Awesome.
Because I'm really hoping for this.
And that might actually go both ways.
No. All Packers all the time. There's pride to play for, and yes, you want to win because it's the division opponents, but if I'm running an organization and I have somebody like Aaron Rodgers and he's not on borrowed time, he's got like 8 years left he can play as long as he's healthy. He might not be a Tom Brady playing till 45 or something of that nature, but he's at least good for another 8. I mean, Brett played at least until 40, so Aaron should be able to do the same. He's fairly healthy and fairly accurate and one of the best players in the game. So I think you really have to take some time to look at this as a developmental period to really think about what the game plan is for next year, because next year, I mean, people are going to be like really angry if we do like a 4-12 dumpster dive next season rather than going the other way around and maybe even running this table 16-0 as Wayne's been looking for the last 8 years. And conceivably will continue to do so.
But it is Vikings week, and it would be nice to win and get back and, Aaron Rodgers' revenge and all that good stuff. So what do you got from the dope sheet this week, Wayne?
Well, this week in the official Green Bay Packers dope sheet, it's for Week 16's Vikings at Packers game, and we will link to the full article. They really have some good stuff in there at PackersFanPodcast.com/150. And at the present time, we are the 7-7 Green Bay Packers. We're finally back home at Lambeau Field one more time this year to host the grudge match game against the Vikings. The Packers return to Lambeau Field, hosting the Minnesota Vikings. It's in prime time, at least here in the United States. Our friends there in the UK and Australia, it's going to be either a very early or very late game, depending on which of those countries you're in. It's the first time Green Bay has played a Saturday game in back-to-back seasons since 94 and 95. Can you believe that? And it will be the 4th time the Packers and Vikings have played on a Saturday during the regular season. We did it 2016, and before that it was 1991, and way back in 1973. And
in all those years, I don't think the Vikings have ever won the Super Bowl.
Nope, never have, never will. The Packers have won their last 5 regular season games played on Saturdays, including a 38-25 win over the Vikings last year.
That sounds promising.
We win on Saturdays. Do it, Packers. And a notable connection that jumped out because there's a lot of them between these two teams. Packers linebacker Clay Matthews, he played at USC with Minnesota defensive end Everson Griffin for 2 years back in 2007, 2008. So if you see them getting chummy on or off the field, it's because they go way back. They got history. So get ready with the full official Green Bay Packers dope sheet for this game. Again, PackersFanPodcast.com/150. What's the weather forecast looking at, Troy?
It's finally looking like a frozen tundra around 18 degrees Fahrenheit at kickoff, and the temperature will be dropping. So holy frozen Viking horns.
That's even colder than the Vikings-Packers game I went to at Lambeau Field when it was 27 degrees at kickoff and falling.
Not as cold as mine. Mine was 0 at kickoff and falling.
You win. Have you thawed out yet?
No, I have not. I think I permanently damaged my toe.
I mean, that is cold.
Some frostbite. That's
that
really
is
cold.
Seriously cold. You can't open up enough of those hand and foot warmers. How do we pick this game? Especially after all the things you talked about that might be going on instead of just focusing on demolishing the Vikings.
Well, I do think it was funny that if we would have successfully finished that last drive, we would have tied it up and gone to overtime. So I was pretty darn close on that regard in my call last week.
I was thinking of you, Troy, because I even told Deb, I said, oh my goodness, Troy may be right. We may have 3 overtime victories in a row.
Fun times. Let's see. I think, well, they scored 31 and we were 24. So unfortunately, it was reversed. So why don't you just go ahead and pick?
Why not?
I, even though this is the first time in 8 years that the Packers are not going to the playoffs, I have a feeling that this is not going to be the first time in 8 years that you're going to pick a loss.
No, sir. And it definitely will never happen when we're playing the Minnesota Vikings as far as picking a loss. We are going to win this game. I think it's going to be close because, you know, all the things you talked about earlier, and who knows what's going to happen with offense. We will win a close one, 24-21.
I'm not that optimistic. I can't anymore. Vikings 28, Packers 17.
Now, wait a minute. That has the Vikings having more points than us when the clock runs out.
Yes, I do think so.
That's not going to be bragging rights.
Their defense is so good. And you're going to put Hundley in there? I mean, if the running game even gets going because they have to go up against the Minnesota defense, it's going to be one tough battle for Brett.
But at the same time, remember, the Minnesota Vikings are back to being an indoor team, and they're going to freeze their tootsies off.
This is true. So it might end up being 21-17 Vikings instead. But yeah, we lose this one. All we have to do is win one. We just have to win this week or next week to have a 500 season. So we can still say, hey, we haven't had a losing season in 8 years.
Packers are going to finish 9-7.
That's the hope.
We'll revisit this next week. I think that's about all we have for this episode of the Packers Fan Podcast, Troy. We just wait for Saturday night and a chilly time. Maybe we should all turn the heaters off in our house so that we can feel the chill from Lambeau.
Absolutely. And then it'll also save energy too. So we're doing things to make the world a better place for everyone this Christmas.
Hashtag feel the chill. No, it's going to be 71 degrees in my house.
I can see it trending on Twitter now. You're watching the game from sunny California. I'll be watching the game from sunny Naples, Florida.
Hey, we actually have a 35% chance of rain tomorrow evening for about 90 minutes.
Woo. Is that what they call winter out there in California? I'm just curious.
Well, the high is only going to be 56 degrees. It's going to be cold.
Whoa, that is cold for you. Ooh, yeah. That is chilly.
So there you have it.
Get out those Hot Pocket hand warmers.
Buy a couple extra cords of firewood, and I'm ready.
Definitely.
We will survive.
We will survive. And we are still unofficial surviving here for another great season. We got a couple more to go, but we're not affiliated with the NFL or the Green Bay Packers. We'd love to be because we love talking about the team. So just let them know that they can email us at media@packersfanpodcast.com.
I even checked the spam folder just in case one came through and we somehow missed it. But we'll keep checking. Remember to listen to us on the go with that free Packers Fan Podcast app that we have for iOS and one for Android. Also, follow us on Twitter at Packers Fan Pod. Follow me on Twitter. Why not? I'm at Wayne Henderson.
And me, I'm at Troy Heinrichs. Be sure to join the new Packers Fan Podcast community group because we got lots to talk about during these last 2 weeks. Just visit us at PackersFanPodcast.com/Facebook or PackersCommunity.com. Both will get you there to have fun and join in on the conversations.
And after the Packers hopefully prove Troy incorrect in his misguided guess of a score with us having less points, we want to hear your feedback. PackersFanPodcast.com/feedback to get your thoughts in, let your voice be heard, and keep those conversations going. And thank you for listening to this episode of your Packers Fan Podcast.
Don't forget 920-3PACK-GO. That's 920-3PACK-GO to get in your feedback as well. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss the last 2 episodes of the season. And we are going to get excited and blow our own Vikings horns as we get hyped. The Packers are coming home to Lambeau. Cheer along, everybody. Let's see it together now. Go, Pack, go!